please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Well, with the resolution of Bhushan Steel under IBC, it is the beginning of the new era for the banking sector. That's the word coming in from former SBI Chairman Arundhati Bhattacharya in an exclusive conversation with Latha Venkatesh. Here's an excerpt of that exclusive conversation.
Surely, I do think that it's at long last sort of beginning to crystallize, and we have to understand that this is a new law. So, you know, it's going to be tested. Plus, you also must understand that these are valuable assets. So, nobody is sort of going to give up without a fight. And however, you know, the good thing is that most of the cases where it has gone to the courts have been very prompt. And they have given very well-reasoned judgments. That's very important, because then the case laws are framed. And then, you know, subsequently, anybody comes with the same kind of issue, it's much easier to resolve. Even where investments are very low, credit growth is very low, still if you look around, you'll see many sectors doing very, very well. So, you know, if you consider the commercial vehicle sector, if you consider aviation sector, if you consider the sheer number of tourist arrivals and the usage of the airports. You know, I was told the other day, Mumbai airport is handling more than 980 flights on a daily basis. So, you know, if you look at all of these numbers, you can understand that there is a momentum in the country. And that is slowly now, you know, beginning to have its impact on our other numbers. So I think, you know, it's a good thing that has happened, and we will hope for many more resolutions in the next few months.
Okay, but I mean, the big fear, since I was a reporter and a cub reporter in '93 when the DRT Act was passed, and a more seasoned reporter in 2003 when SARFAESI was passed, even now there are 4,000 cases and only 2,000 are being heard in the 12 NCLTs. Is there a fear that this might get overwhelmed under the weight of cases?
See, there is no doubt about the fact that you need to create the kind of bandwidth that will enable these cases to be heard, and heard quickly and resolved. So there is no doubt about that at all. And in fact, you know, I think I would say that it's the media's job to keep tracking this so that nobody forgets about it, that it doesn't sort of, you know, get onto the back burner and people start disregarding it as we have the delays in the regular courts.
Well, Latha also caught up with Leo Puri, the MD of UTI AMC, and asked him about his views on the mutual fund industry as well as the markets going ahead. Let's hear him out.
I think the underlying trend remains quite sound. Around that underlying trend, you will of course see cycles, because this is a cyclical industry. But the process that has driven financialization, which is essentially the fact real estate and gold have been relatively unattractive, and a diversification from that. Obviously, disposable savings rising, awareness rising, and people essentially looking to financial assets as tax, if you like, compliance and so on comes in as well. All of these are things which will actually drive over the long term monetization. How much comes into mutual funds versus deposits versus insurance versus other saving schemes will always be a factor that all of us will compete for. But but the mutual fund industry is a cyclical industry. Okay. And I wouldn't assume that that has changed. I will definitely not attempt to pitch a point for the market, but I would say that we had, of course, the phenomenon where mid-caps were trading at very significant premiums to the normal market. At one point, a 30%, 30% plus premium. Given that the historical trend line is to trade at an 8 to 10% discount, that was a very exaggerated anomaly from a quantitative perspective. And really the earnings were good, but they were not good enough to support that outperformance. So just as mid-caps go up very quickly in bullish times, they tend to come down 2 or 3 times as quickly, by the way. The broader market otherwise remains fairly, I would say, relatively well supported, because we're coming out of an earnings trough into an improving earnings cycle. GDP growth is looking healthier. We'll always hope for a good monsoon, as we do. India remains a relatively well-regarded country in terms of sovereign rating and therefore is getting its share of flows. So broader market, there's no reason, I would say, to panic whatsoever.
Okay, so no reason for the broader markets to panic. But moving on then, Brent crude oil prices dropped below the $77 per barrel mark on back of indications that the OPEC, along with Russia, were considering easing supply curbs later this year. Now back home, however, senior government officials tell CNBC TV18 that there is no easy solution to dousing the fuel fire. We learned that the government is still working on its plan to provide relief to consumers. Sapna Das joins us with some exclusive details. Sapna, what's the latest?
So after 5 days of almost consecutive price revisions upwards in terms of petroleum and diesel prices in the domestic market, what we understand is that, senior government officials are now saying that there is no easy solution to the oil price situation. And they are still waiting for some kind of a proposal or some kind of a view to be firmed up by Petroleum Ministry. Clarity will emerge only then that actually what are the options on the table for the government. Having said that, despite the somewhat softening of the global price, at the moment in the global markets of crude, the fact remains that a 6 to 12-month time frame will have to be taken by the government, because there could be price volatility and that may need to be contained or addressed at some point in time. So having said that, the options that so far that have been spoken about, the contribution of upstream and downstream companies probably, well, even that may not be easy, because any kind of a decision taken on that front will affect the company's ability to pay dividends to the exchequer, to the central government, and also their ability in terms of ramping up their capex. That will take a direct hit. Anything that the government does in terms of duties, of course, that will impact the fisc directly. So no easy solutions here, still awaiting some kind of a proposal from the Petroleum Ministry. Also, let's keep in mind what is happening globally in terms of the price trend. If that continues for some time, for all you know, the government may actually decide not to take any measures. And if that happens, then for all you know, the retail prices where they've reached right now may actually stabilize at that level, possibly not come down immediately, because OMCs will take some time to take a call again, and because those prices can only come down now if the government goes ahead with an excise duty cut. And as I've just mentioned, there is nothing on the table so far. These are just options being spoken about. The proposal has yet to concretize.
All right, then moving on. Market regulator SEBI has issued a notice to ICICI Bank in the Videocon loan case. Now, the regulator's notice is based on information provided by the bank and its MD and CEO on the dealings between the bank and the Videocon group. Ritu Singh joins us with all those details. Ritu, take us through the contents of this particular notice.
ICICI Bank has said that capital market regulator SEBI has started proceedings against the bank for non-disclosure of information on the alleged ICICI Bank and Videocon loan nexus. It said that it received a notice from SEBI on the 24th of May, which requires responses from the bank and its MD and CEO Chanda Kochar. In the notice, SEBI has asked for replies on alleged non-compliance with respect to listing agreements, also non-compliance with respect to SEBI disclosure regulations. The notice has been issued by SEBI on the basis of information that was shared by ICICI Bank in this Videocon case. In fact, the bank goes on to say that the MD and CEO has been asked for information with respect to dealings in the Videocon group and New Power Bank is both as well. The bank also said that it will be making appropriate responses to SEBI in due course.
Okay, it is time now for a quick break. Come back, we'll discuss more cues that are lined up for the trade today. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Well, back home on the Lal Street, major indices closed the week in positive territory, with the Nifty and the Sensex closing close to 1% higher in trade. Mid-cap slightly underperformed because that one was up around 60 points in trade. The banks were the major laggards in trade, closing around 30 points in the red. But how the cues stacked up for the day? Nigel, it is the start of the new week. It is an expiry week. What are the cues lined up for trade today and the week?
Well, it's going to be quite interesting, Anisha, because remember, we saw a correction of around 400 points on the Nifty. We have made up nearly around 40% of that or thereabouts. It's been a good bounce back, around 170 points odd is what we have seen just in the last couple of trading sessions. The key factor, that's really going to be crude. Crude has moved down to around $75 on a per barrel basis. That's good news. In fact, it's even dipped below the $75 on a per barrel basis. So splendid news, really. And the strength in the rupee was telling you that it really was a very, very good day in Friday's trading session. The rupee logged its best intraday or daily gains that we've seen in nearly around a year on. Nifty Bank, they were partying in Friday's trading session. And if crude is going to dip, then some of these sectors that got hit, they bounce back. The OMCs bounced back. The aviation companies, they were scared that maybe, in fact, now we'll see crude prices moving higher. It gets more expensive because the rupee is weakening as well. Good rally is what we saw on both those two sets of stocks. And remember, in Friday's trading session, the mid-cap and the small-cap space, they relatively outperformed the Nifty as well as the Nifty Bank. So it was a good trading session all around. The rupee did strengthen, as I told you, but the IT sector, it was quite resilient actually. It ended more or less flattish. Otherwise, in fact, with the kind of rally that we've seen, you'd expect the IT sector to go in lower. If the rupee strengthens even from here, we'll have to keep an eye out on that very, very closely. And the dollar index, it did weaken a tad bit. So the metal index bounced back. Metal index saw a good run. But institutional flows, that's what we're tracking on a Friday evening. Well, in fact, the FIs, they continue to sell. The DIs are offsetting all of that. They pumped in good amount of money. And remember, the last 9 sessions, the FIs have sold 6,000 crores. But the DIs, they have pumped in more than $1 billion in the recent past. The FIs, they're still net short on the index. But in Friday's trading session, they added more long positions. And if you look at it, they're still buying some calls. They're writing some puts as well. So let's, just wind this down now with, in fact, what are the levels on the Nifty? The Nifty is trading well above all its DMAs. The Nifty Bank as well is trading well above all its DMAs. So get both those two plates up for you. And the 20 DMA, that's the nearest possible level that we're looking at. So keep an eye out on the 20 DMA. Otherwise, the way crude prices have dipped, it should, we should start off well in the green. 2 earnings reactions we're looking at from the Nifty pack. Tech Mahindra, those numbers looked good, better than what the street was working with on all counts. And Sun Pharma as well, there's an upgrade that's coming from Macquarie. And those numbers as well, remember the stock has been a big underperformer.
Right.
But even, Sun Pharma should open up in the green. So both those 2 earnings reactions should be positive.
Okay, so you talked about the 2 earnings reaction. Thankfully, it's the fag end of the earnings season finally coming to an end. So a lot of earnings reaction is what you'll watch out for?
Absolutely. And you're going to have a busy day, Anisha, because L&T comes out with its set of numbers. And that's the big heavyweight on the Nifty. Besides the numbers, we'll also keep an eye out on commentary. Because when you get a sense of what's happening in the Indian economy on the whole. For the last half decade or so, I've always been looking at L&T because it gives you a bit of a feel of what's going to happen in terms of the Indian economy. So keep an eye out on L&T. You have Auto Pharma, Bank of India as well. All of them come out with their set of numbers. And from the broader markets, you have the likes of NHPC, NTPC, NMDC, REC, a lot of stocks out there. Results reactions, PC Jewelers is going to be quite interesting. How does this really play out? The margins did expand, but otherwise, numbers didn't look anything really great. Divi's Laboratory, the margin expansion is something that the street will like. The Unit 1 as well was inspected with 0 observations, so the street will like that. Bank of Baroda, they reported a net loss for the first time in 8 quarters. We did see slippages as well that come in at its highest levels in the past 8 quarters. So keep an eye out on that stock. Good results. Kalpataru, those numbers look good. The guidance as well given is quite good. Nalco, the numbers were more or less mixed. We had Alumina that performed. Aluminium was a bit of a disappointment. And NBCC, when are the numbers going to show? We always see that big order book, but in fact, the numbers not really reflecting this time around. XL Industries, good set of numbers, but let's wind this down with some weak numbers. You had Corporation Bank that were weak, XL Corp, in fact, that did see a weak set of numbers, and GIC as well, the numbers didn't look good. Finally, besides the results, you're looking at Punch Loy, they're going to be restructuring some of their loans, so keep an eye out on that stock. DFM Foods, they're adding capacity of more than 10%, and PNC, they won even an order. Besides this, Anisha, besides the entire market setup, keep an eye out on what's going on the political front as well. There are a few seats that will be going to elections today. Okay. So Lok Sabha seats as well as assembly seats, and that result comes in the next couple of days. So that will be one monitorable as well that the street will keep one eye on.
Okay, so fag end of the earnings season and the earnings are a bit mixed, but other important cues are also lined up for the day today, especially crude. And Latha joins us now with her perspective on the crude and the market. Latha, good morning.
Good morning. Well, I just wanted to add my voice to what Nigel had said. On Friday, when we closed, that massive rally we saw in the second half was largely because crude had dipped from close to 79 to 77 and change. Today morning, it's trading at 76.15 at the lows. So this is a, okay, now at 74.5. So where did we leave off? We left off, at 10,600 Nifty. crude actually at that time was at 77 and change.
Yes.
We are now looking at least a $3 or a $2.50 fall. That's going to mean a massive rally in the bond markets as well. And of course, the rupee had already appreciated to 67.70. The 67.50 is a very important support level for the dollar. But the way the $2.50 fall in crude can well breach that 67.50 mark. But it's bonds that are really going towards, they will rush towards that 7.6 mark. They were, charging towards 7.9. We're going to see that huge change. Already we dipped below 7.8 on Friday, but now we will move towards 7.7, and I wouldn't be surprised even with a 7.65 number. It's a very thin market and can easily be swayed by this emotion. What does that mean to stocks? A huge NBFC rally, a huge PSU bank rally, a huge OMC rally. This is going to be big for India today. It's not a small day.
Okay, Latha, thank you so much for adding that perspective. So keep an eye out on the OMCs, the NBFCs and the rupee and the bond rate. Looks like it's going to be an interesting set of day. But time now for a quick break. Up next, we'll discuss Bank of Baroda because it posted an operationally weak quarter this time. We'll decode the numbers for you on the other side. Stay tuned.